Commander Gorvak had seen many things in his years of service. He'd watched a Trelvati berserker bite through starship armor during a boarding raid. He'd seen a Rolvac scout rip its own leg off to escape a minefield. Once, he'd personally disarmed a Torgax brute using nothing but a sharpened ration tin. But nothing in all those years had prepared him for the sight of a human stretching. He stood behind the reinforced glass of Training Bay 6, arms folded across his broad chest, mandibles twitching with irritation. Below him, a group of young recruits from various species shuffled into formation, and among them, was it stretching again? Yes. One of the humans, a female, was touching her toes. Slowly, with what appeared to be actual calm. Gorvak snorted through his nostrils, a blast of steam rising into the observation deck's filtered air. "They really are as soft as they look," he muttered. His aide, a slender, multi-limbed archivist from the Valari system, said nothing, merely blinked, twice, in that twitchy way his kind did when uncomfortable. Gorvak didn't care. "Their joints click when they move," he continued. "Their bones break in wind. Their skin looks like wet paper." Still no response. He leaned closer to the glass, watching as the human girl moved through some kind of pre-combat stretch routine. She wasn't large, barely 1.6 meters tall, no claws, no horns, no protective plating. And yet, she didn't seem nervous. That irritated him most of all. "So this is the infamous Deathworlder species," he said, voice dripping sarcasm. "The apex predator of the Terran meatball. What a disappointment." His aide finally spoke, carefully. "Sir, permission to speak candidly?" "Granted. There's a reason they're classified as restricted-level trainees. You might want to—" "Restricted?" Gorvak's voice was louder now. "They bleed if you poke them. What's restricted? Their nap schedules?" He turned away from the window and strode toward the combat lift. "I'll be taking this morning's demonstration. That one. The girl with the black hair. Sir, I really must insist. Insist all you want. The academy's been too soft for too long. I'm here to remind these children what discipline looks like." The aide said nothing. Below, in the training bay, the human cadet reached the end of her stretch, then looked directly at the observation window. And smiled. It wasn't smug, wasn't angry, wasn't nervous. It was the kind of smile a person gave when they already knew how the story ended. Gorvak missed it. He was already in the lift. After all, how dangerous could one fragile girl possibly be? The combat lift hissed downward, thick plumes of coolant vapor curling around Gorvak's massive shoulders. His scales clicked softly as his body shifted, a natural sound among his kind, but one that caused smaller species to flinch. Good, let them flinch. He had not crossed 4 sectors and 2 battlefields to play nursemaid to a generation of weaklings. The Rulvax Dominion had trained him to command and to break anything that didn't listen. The doors opened with a metallic groan, revealing Instructor Hall B, a vaulted corridor lined with banners from a dozen galactic species. Most were ceremonial, little more than embroidered cloth soaked in nostalgia and delusion. The banner for the Rolvax showed a skull being crushed by a 4-fingered claw. He smiled. Waiting for him was a welcoming party, thinly veiled, hastily assembled, and led by a trembling senior staffer with more datapads than vertebrae. "Commander Gorvak," the staffer squeaked, "we didn't expect you to take field instructions so soon." "I adapt quickly," Gorvak replied. "Where's the schedule for human cadets?" The staffer blinked. "Human? Sir, I thought you'd want to start with the Garthal or the Veskari. No." His voice was final, heavy. "The humans are the weak link. The rest of the academy is adjusting its standards to accommodate them. That ends today." The staffer hesitated, but Gorvak had already moved past him, claws tapping against the smooth alloy floor. His bulk parted the hallway traffic like a ship through fog. Recruits and junior officers scurried aside, whispering. He caught a few words. Death Ring champion. No losses. Disarmed a Bronthax with his own bone. Yes, let them remember the legends. He passed by a viewing room where a sparring match had just ended. Two crystalline Shivari instructors paused their evaluation as he passed, then stiffened as he glanced inside. Another weakling species. Beautiful, fragile, ornamental. So many of them worship balance and peace now, he muttered under his breath. War doesn't care about balance. War rewards the predator. As he entered the main instructor bay, the lights above automatically dimmed, compensating for his species' enhanced optical cones. Several other instructors were present reviewing assignments, lecturing their squads, or quietly sipping nutrient broth. All conversation stopped as he entered. He ignored them. Instead, he crossed to the training board, a floating display with the day's assignments, combat cycles, and cadet evaluations. He flicked through species profiles with a clawed finger. Garthal, too armored. Veskari, too reliant on symbiotic tech. Trollin, too aquatic. Then human, Cadet Lexa Ward. Her profile was disappointingly sparse. No family listed. Standard Earth-based combat training. Average height. No notable genetic augments. Still, something odd. A single line in red, tagged with a cross-disciplinary marker. Caution. Subject demonstrates high behavioral stability under extreme duress. Monitor closely in live environments. Gorvok grunted. Sounds like bureaucratic nonsense. From behind him, a gravelly voice, or a warning you do well to heed. He turned. Standing at the rear of the bay was an aging alien, thin, four-armed, translucent veined skin. A Thranari, maybe? The voice sounded like gravel soaked in engine oil. Instructor Daleth, the figure added, stepping forward. I've overseen Lexa Ward's progress. She's composed. She's human, Gorvok replied. She'll break like the rest. Some things don't break the way you expect. Gorvok didn't bother replying. He jabbed the selection holo with a final motion, locking in Lexa Ward as his demonstration opponent for the next morning. The holo chimed once in confirmation. He turned to leave, but paused at the door. I don't need your warnings, he said without turning back. I've fought across 9 systems. The only thing I haven't broken is my own record. A long silence. Then, from the shadows, Daleth's voice came again, almost too soft to hear. There's a first time for everything, Commander. The training floor smelled like steel, ozone, and sweat, a scent Gorvok knew well. He liked it. It reminded him of combat. Real combat. He stalked into Training Bay 3, the largest open ring on the base where cadets from mixed species ran warm-up drills in loosely organized pods. Overhead, the energy domes shimmered slightly, containment fields active, just in case something got out of hand. He didn't wait for an escort, didn't wait for introductions. He stepped into the middle of the bay and roared, "Form ranks, now!" The sound reverberated off the walls like a thunderclap. Instructors paused. Cadets froze. Within moments, 36 recruits had lined up in semi-straight rows, some more confident than others. Gorvok began walking the line. A Garthal cadet snapped to attention, tusks gleaming. A Valari twitched nervously, blinking all 6 eyes. Then human, he stopped. Lexa Ward was at the far end of the line. Her uniform was standard issue, slightly loose around the shoulders. She was stretching again, but not like before. This time, she was on the floor. One knee down, both arms extended, twisting at the waist, smooth, relaxed, controlled, and completely ignoring him. "Cadet," he barked, eyes front. Lexa looked up slowly, blinked once, and pushed to her feet in one motion. She didn't salute, didn't flinch, just stood there. Her expression was unreadable. No fear, no smugness, no reaction at all. That bothered him. "Name and species," he said more forcefully. "Lexa Ward, human." Her voice was calm, even. She might have been ordering a sandwich. Gorvok squinted. Her stance was slightly off-weight over her back foot, hands loose by her sides. Wrong. No proper fighting form. No tension. He stepped closer. She didn't budge. "Your instructors say you're above average. I say you're overrated. Let's find out who's right. Sounds fun. He narrowed his eyes. That sarcasm? No, sir. But her tone said otherwise. He circled her, slow and deliberate. Cadets watched with growing unease. One or two of the more experienced ones were already exchanging glances. He saw it but dismissed it. I'm choosing you for tomorrow's demonstration match. 1 round. Controlled force. You'll walk away with bruises and a better education. Lexa raised one eyebrow. Should I thank you now or after I'm
Incoming
bleeding?
voice call from B12
Before?
Ishid town
That
on
way you'll
Simjaz.
still have teeth. Something like a smirk almost reached her lips, then
Incoming
vanished.
voice call from
She nodded
B12
once.
Ishid town
See
on
you in the ring.
Simjaz.
As Gorvok turned to walk away, he heard her
Incoming voice
mutter
call
behind
from
him,
B12
hope your
Ishid
insurance
town on
covers spinal
Simjaz.
trauma. He stopped just for a heartbeat, then kept walking.
Incoming voice call from
He
B12
didn't see her
Ishid
expression,
town on.
but 3 other human cadets did, and none of them were smiling. The next morning arrived with all the elegance of a loaded weapon. Across the academy, instructors reviewed training schedules, combat
Incoming
rings were
voice call
calibrated,
from B12
and cadets rubbed
Ishid
sleep
town
from
on
their eyes as
Simjaz.
they filtered into Combat Hall Theta, a repurposed dropship
Incoming
hangar
voice
converted
call
into
from
a training
B12
arena.
Ishid town on
Most of them
Simjaz.
didn't know what they were about to witness, but some, especially the humans, had
Incoming voice
suspicions.
call from B12 Ishid
The
town on
energy barrier
Simjaz.
flickered as the crowd formed a wide semicircle around the central ring, 20
Incoming
meters
voice
wide
call
and
from
lined with
B12
kinetic absorption
Ishid
panels.
town on Simjaz.
Inside, 2 medics stood waiting near a hover gurney. That alone made a few cadets shift uneasily. Lexa Ward arrived with a cup of black synth-caf and a minor scowl. She sipped casually as she entered the prep zone, flanked by no one, acknowledged by no one. Cadet Ward, please report to the ring, came the intercom. She took one more sip, discarded the cup, and walked forward with the quiet confidence of someone heading to check her mail. At the far side of the ring, Commander Gorvok emerged from a reinforced locker bay, armored chest bare, plated arms flexing as he rolled his shoulders. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Even for a Rolvax, he was massive. His scales shimmered with oil-sheen blues and black. His tail thumped the ground with each step. The air around him seemed to warm from his body heat alone. He stepped into the ring like it belonged to him. Lexa didn't even look up. The intercom crackled again. Demonstration bout. 1 round. Controlled contact. No lethal strikes. Gorvok turned to the assembled cadets and spread all 4 of his arms wide. Today, he began, his voice booming, you will witness proper form, power,
Incoming
and
voice call
discipline.
from
Not
B12
simulations,
Ishid town
not
on
theory.
Simjaz.
Combat. He pointed to Lexa with one massive clawed
Incoming
finger.
voice call from
This cadet
B12
volunteered.
Ishid town on Simjaz.
That's a lie, Lexa muttered. Not loud, not soft, just factual.
Incoming voice call from
A
B12
few of the human
Ishid
cadets
town on
chuckled.
Simjaz.
Gorvok ignored it. Let this serve as a reminder to all species.
Incoming
Strength
voice
is
call
not
from
given, it
B12
is taken.
Ishid town on Simjaz.
Lexa was now in the ring, hands loose at her sides, weight resting on her back foot again. Same stance as yesterday. He hated it. Do you intend to fight with that posture? It's comfortable, she replied. It's lazy. She shrugged. So adjust. From the crowd, Instructor Daleth stood with arms crossed, silent. Behind him, the Valari aide from yesterday watched with all 4 of his eyes locked on Lexa and not on the commander. Even the medics looked unusually alert. Begin, came the announcement. Gorvok didn't attack, not immediately. He circled, watching, analyzing. Lexa didn't move. Not a step, not a twitch, just breathing. This your strategy? He asked. Statues don't win fights. They don't lose them either. That one earned an audible snort from a Torgax cadet. Gorvok frowned. Enough games. He surged forward with one smooth motion, aiming to test her nothing lethal, just enough to slap the attitude out of her. He faked high, swept low, and caught her wrist with a snap grip that would have floored a Voltari. There was a sharp pop, then a crack. Her wrist bent at an angle that shouldn't happen. The sound echoed in the chamber. Blood dripped instantly, red, bright, vivid against the stark white ring floor. Gorvok released her hand and turned toward the crowd. Observe, he announced. Minimal effort, absolute control. Murmurs rose. A few cadets winced. Even one of the Crystallians chimed with unease. He turned back toward Lexa, ready to offer a condescending line. She was still standing. Still hadn't moved. Still hadn't said a word. Her broken wrist hung limp. Her nose flared once. She exhaled and looked at him. Her pupils, previously normal, had contracted into pinpricks. Her shoulders hadn't changed position, but her entire body looked different, tighter, heavier, coiled, like a spring. A slow buzz crawled through the crowd, instinctual, primal. "Cadet," Korvac began. "If you're unable to continue, you may—" "I'm fine." Her voice wasn't calm anymore. It was precise, measured, just counting. Counting? She blinked. Adrenaline surge. 30 seconds to reach full saturation. About. She checked her chronometer with her good hand. 19 left. That made him pause. Just long enough for a dozen cadets to unconsciously step backward. He scoffed, covering the tension. "Human biology doesn't scare me. It's not supposed to." She rolled her shoulder. "But it should concern you." In the observation bay, Daleth leaned forward. The aide whispered something unintelligible and turned away. Korvac didn't notice. He was still standing tall, still confident. But the crowd wasn't looking at him anymore. They were watching her. And for the first time in years, Commander Korvac felt something unfamiliar crawling along his spine. Something cold, something old. It wasn't fear exactly, but it was close. Commander Korvac could feel the crowd watching. He welcomed it. This was the moment they would remember. Not her name, not her species. His control. He advanced again, this time with more intent, a smooth shift of his lower spine and a controlled forward pivot that covered 5 meters in a blink. His right arm, the same one that had disarmed a Tarlock general in single combat, swept forward in a practiced arc. Palm open, non-lethal, but firm, the slap struck Lexa's face dead on. Crack. Not a casual tag, not a tap, a real strike, measured, perfectly placed. Her head snapped sideways from the blow. A bright spray of red flicked through the air in a graceful arc, droplets landing across the white floor like violent ink. Her nose was broken. Blood poured immediately, down her lips, over her chin, soaking the collar of her uniform. The sound from the crowd wasn't a cheer. It was a gasp. Even some of the more aggressive species flinched. The Crystallians recoiled so fast their glassy limbs clicked against each other. One of the younger cadets turned away, visibly shaken. Korvac let the moment hang. "Minimal force," he said again, shaking out his hand and inspecting it. "Minimal damage. The difference between power and panic." No one replied. He turned back to Lexa. She hadn't moved. Not a stumble, not a whimper. Just standing there, arms loose, blood streaming freely from her nose in twin crimson lines. She wasn't touching it. She wasn't even blinking. Just staring. Right at him. Korvac paused. For just a moment. Her eyes were different now. Before, they had been bored, detached, civilized. Now they were hollow, wide. Something behind them was calculating. He took a step closer. "You're still upright. Good. That means I can—" "Do you know what happens next?" Lexa interrupted quietly. Her voice was nasal now, thickened by blood, but disturbingly calm. "Do you know what's happening inside my body right now?" Korvac hesitated. "Your nervous system is shutting down?" "No." Her lips curled slightly. Not a smile. Something colder. "It's waking up." The air around them felt heavier. No one spoke. "Adrenal glands," she said softly. "Flooding the bloodstream. Cortisol, epinephrine, noradrenaline." She tapped her chest once with her unbroken hand. "My heart's running at 180. My muscles are tightening. Blood flow redirected to vital systems. Pain inhibition's already kicked in." She tilted her head slightly. "You didn't hurt me. You started a countdown." From the observation deck, a medic dropped a tablet. Instructors weren't talking anymore. They were moving. Quietly. Away from the glass. Even Gorvok could feel it now, a shift in the room. A tension he couldn't define. The girl still hadn't moved. But something around her had. It was as if the air inside the combat ring had lost its color, its temperature. "I've read your file," Gorvok said, trying to regain footing. "Mixed martial training. Terran grappling. Meant for bar fights and obstacle courses." "Maybe," she said. Blood dripped from her chin. "Or maybe it's for things with claws and 6 arms that don't stop when you scream." Gorvok felt his tail flex involuntarily. "You're threatening me." "No, Commander." She checked her chronometer again. Her thumb swiped across it. "I'm tracking my vitals." A heartbeat of silence. Then she added casually, "You have about 12 seconds left to feel like you're still in control." That was when Gorvok realized something unsettling. He couldn't hear anyone breathing anymore. Not the cadets, not the observers, not even himself. Just a low, dull ringing in his ears. "You're bluffing." 10. "This is psychological warfare." 8. "Your species is fragile. Your bones are brittle." 6. He clenched his fists, scales flexed, blood pressure rising. "You don't intimidate me." 4. She exhaled. A puff of red mist trailed from her broken nose. 2. Her pupils dilated. Her posture shifted. Gorvok stepped back. 1. She moved. That was the first thing no one saw. There was no wind-up, no battle cry, no change in her breathing, no hint of intent. Just stillness, then motion. One moment, Cadet Lexa Ward was standing 5 feet in front of him, bleeding. The next moment, she wasn't. She was beside him, behind him, touching him. Commander Gorvak's eyes evolved to track missile velocities, and limb vectors couldn't follow it. His brain simply refused to register the movement. It didn't matter, because the pain arrived before the understanding. Lexa's good hand had locked onto the base of his primary spinal segment, right between 2 armor plates, her fingers shorter, weaker. Humans should not have been able to find purchase there. And yet they had. Her grip was precise, anchored, surgical. Before Gorvok could react, she pulled. Twist, torque, pop. The sound echoed across the combat ring. It was sharp, sudden, and final, like the snapping of a thick branch in freezing air. Except the branch was his spine. And the air wasn't cold, he was. The scream that tore from Gorvok's throat didn't sound like language. It was high-pitched, fluted, shrieking an animal sound, a death cry. His knees buckled, his secondary arms flailed. One leg collapsed entirely beneath him. He crashed to the floor, convulsing, leaking thick blue-green fluid from his lower back. Lexa let go and took one slow step backward. Her breathing deepened again. She didn't look angry. She didn't look victorious. She looked done. From above, someone whispered, "She moved like a weapon, not a person." No one responded. Not even the medical team. They had frozen, halfway through prepping the hover gurney, stunned by what they had just witnessed. Then movement. The Valari aide sprinted for the emergency intercom, slapping the red square with all 4 hands. "Medical to Bay Theta Code Black. Commander down." But the medic still hesitated, because the girl was still standing. And no one wanted to be the first one to move toward her. Lexa looked down at her hand, the one that had just rearranged a Rolvac's spine like it was a puzzle piece. She wiped it against her uniform pants, not with anger, not with disgust. More like after handling something sticky. "There," she said softly. "Now we're even." Her nose was still bleeding, her wrist still broken. But Gorvak lay twitching on the floor like a ruined marionette. Cadets around the ring were backing away, silently, instinctively. Some were shaking. Others just stared. From the edge of the crowd, one human cadet whispered, "That wasn't a counterattack, that was biology." Another replied, even more quietly. That was restraint. Gorvak gasped, struggling to move. Only one of his secondary arms responded, jerking weakly as his spinal system short-circuited itself. His compound eyes locked onto Lexa's. She stepped forward again just enough to make the medical team flinch. Then she knelt, close enough for him to hear. "Do you know what adrenaline does after the 30 seconds?" she whispered. "It doesn't just give you power. It takes things away too. Pain, hesitation, mercy." Gorvak wheezed. Lexa stood. "You broke my wrist." She turned her body slightly, eyes still locked on his. "I snapped your spine, balance." With that, she walked away, limping slightly, still bleeding, still in control. The ring remained silent. Even the energy dome flickered like it didn't want to be here. Silence.
Incoming voice call
Not
from
the respectful
B12
kind.
Irshid
The
town on
terrified
Simjaz.
kind. The kind of silence that creeps into hospitals at night or lingers after a
Incoming
crash.
voice call from B12
Lexa had
Irshid
left the
town on
ring.
Simjaz.
Not quickly, not dramatically. She just walked off.
Incoming voice call
Calm.
from B12 Irshid
Bleeding.
town on Simjaz.
One arm limp at her side. She didn't look back. She didn't need
Incoming
to.
voice call from B12 Irshid.
All eyes stayed on the broken-shaped Commander Gorvak, who now lay curled awkwardly on the floor, one arm twitching, the other three locked in involuntary spasms. A puddle of dark green fluid was spreading beneath his midsection. The medic still hadn't moved. Finally, the Volari aide shouted again. "He needs stabilization now. He's bleeding into his secondary lungs." That broke the spell. 4 medics sprinted into the ring, flanked by 2 robotic stretchers and a hovering trauma pod. They surrounded Gorvak with an efficiency born from experience, but none of them spoke. Not one dared speak. Even as they worked, their eyes kept darting to the door Lexa had exited through, as if expecting her to reappear, as if she might come back and finish what she started. From the observation deck above, Instructor Deleth finally let out the breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Beside him, another instructor muttered a prayer in a language that had no vowels. Deleth said nothing. He simply pressed a hand to the observation glass and whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "So that's what restraint looks like. From a species built to kill." Down below, the ring was cleared. Gorvak's limp form was now sealed into a full-body neural suspension cast, which glowed faintly with blue diagnostic lines. The trauma pod hissed closed and lifted off the ground with a soft hum. As it floated away, Gorvak's eyes were still open wide, darting, searching. 2 hours later, Medical Bay 4. The hum of bio-suspension units echoed softly through the white-tiled medical bay. Commander Gorvak lay on an inclined medbed, wrapped in a regenerative cocoon from shoulder to waist. Only his head and lower arms were exposed. One arm was limp. The other clutched the rail like it was the only thing anchoring him to reality. He wasn't in pain, the suppressants were too strong for that. But he remembered the pain. More than that, he remembered the silence. The frozen moment, her stillness, the way her eyes never changed, the way his never had a chance. His thoughts spiraled. How? How could something so small? The door hissed open. Station Commander Zern Kareth entered, a towering Ursinian with a broad, fur-lined frame and a reputation for diplomacy over brutality. Today, his expression was unreadable. He pulled a chair close and sat. The chair groaned under his weight. "Gorvak," he said after a moment, "how much do you remember?" Gorvak's mandibles clicked, but no words came. Zern waited. Finally, Gorvak whispered, "She never blinked, not once." Zern nodded. "That tracks with human combat focus. They lose blinking reflexes during peak adrenal override." Override? It's what they call it when their systems switch into survival optimization. Most species evolve to avoid harm. Humans evolve to take it, then give it back harder. Gorvak stared at the ceiling. She didn't even look angry. Zern's voice lowered. "That's the worst part, isn't it?" A pause. Then Gorvak turned his head slowly, painfully. "I thought they were fragile." "They are. Zern replied. But they break differently than we do. That's what no one ever explains in the reports. He stood, walked to the side console, and tapped a hollow file open. Images floated above the bed. Human bone density stats, reflex comparisons, thermal muscle reaction curves, psychological resilience charts. A list titled Recorded Combat Responses from Injured Human Cadets. Gorvak stared at it all in silence. Did anyone else survive her reaction? You're the first instructor who's ever hit one. Gorvak flinched. Zern didn't look away. Do you know why? Because they're dangerous. Because we were warned. Another pause, then quietly. You weren't the first to underestimate them, but you might be the last. Later that evening. Lexa's quarters. Lexa sat on her bunk, her wrist freshly splinted, nose taped, one side of her uniform stained and crusted with old blood. She was sipping water and reading a thermodynamics prep sheet. Nothing else. No music, no lights, no emotion. The door chimed. Enter. Instructor Daleth stepped inside. He carried a small data chip in one hand and a soft towel in the other. He offered her the towel. She took it and began slowly cleaning dried blood from her cheek. Daleth studied her quietly. You didn't hesitate, he finally said. She shrugged. No time. You could have killed him. She looked up. I didn't. Daleth nodded. You knew where to hit. I always know where to hit. He set the data chip down. You'll be summoned tomorrow. Not for punishment, for review. I understand. He hesitated, then, did it hurt? Lexa looked down at her wrist. The break? She thought about it. It was just a trigger. For what? She looked back at him, calm, cold, measured. For becoming what Earth made me. 3 days later, Gorvak was released from medical suspension. He could walk again barely. He wore a neural brace from hip to shoulder, and every movement felt like glass shifting inside his spine. The medics said it would be months before he'd regain full mobility. If he ever did. He didn't complain. He didn't speak much at all. Not anymore. On the 5th morning, Station Commander Zern called him into a private debrief room. It was quiet. No aides, no data chips. Just a small table, 2 chairs, and a screen playing slow footage of the incident in the ring frame by Painful Frame. Lexa's movement was blurred even in slow motion. You know what's coming next, don't you? Zern said. Gorvak nodded. Reassignment. Correct, but not demotion. Gorvak raised one brow ridge. You're being placed on specialized instruction detail, Zern continued. You'll oversee close-quarters combat training. For human cadets only. Silence. Then, a short, rasping breath Gorvak's attempt at laughter. That's not a punishment, he said. That's a death sentence. Zern allowed the corner of his mouth to lift, barely. They requested you. Requested. Specifically, Lexa included. Another silence. Then Gorvak whispered, Why? Zern leaned forward. Because you survived her. Later that week. Training Hall 2B. Gorvak stood before a dozen human cadets most younger than Lexa, all watching him with unreadable expressions. Not hostile, not afraid. Just evaluating. He stood taller now, not physically, but differently. He had learned something. His voice was quieter when he spoke. Your species confuses the galaxy, he said. You lack armor, claws, venom, no telepathy, no heat vision. Your biology isn't optimized for anything we understand. He paused. But you endure. You react. You break, but only in ways that let you regrow. He let that settle. So this course will not be about winning fights. It will be about knowing when
Incoming
you've already
voice call
won
from 0303
and how to hold back.
7947198
From the
on
rear of the group,
SimJazz.
Lexa Ward leaned casually against a training dummy. She said
Incoming voice
nothing,
call from
but she
0303
smiled.
7947198
saw
on
it.
SimJazz.
That night observation bay. Instructor Daleth stood overlooking a new group of trainees in a distant ring. Zern stepped beside him. You watched the Gorvac class? Deleth nodded. He's slower now, but better. Still angry? No, Daleth replied. Now he's afraid of the right things. Lexa walked through the dim corridor leading to her barracks. Her nose had healed. Her wrist had too. She moved like nothing had ever happened, but everyone stepped out of her way. She entered her room, dropped her bag, and sat on the edge of the bunk. From her pocket, she pulled a small black ring, a training marker from the combat bay, still stained from the day she broke him. She turned it in her fingers slowly, then whispered almost to herself, Earth didn't make us soft. A pause. It made us survivors. The room went still. The screen went dark. It made us survivors.